Hello! Today's descriptive writing video is really cool. This is a new technique that I've just tried out with my class. It's cool because it teaches you how to describe brilliantly, but there's more. It also helps you revise the poems you're studying. So pop over to Bite Size if you want copies of them. This one's Storm on the Island. And as you read the poem, well, actually, I won't tell you now. Stick around to the end of the video and I'll show you how the description helps you revise Storm on the Island. I'm going to copy the description and paste it into the description of the video below. I've not done this before, so please comment and say whether you found this is useful as a way for you to get hold of my resource. So here we go. Wizened by hope, the old man sits in the waiting room. His mind dives from the cliffs of cancer. Yes, the tests will show if it has spread, Mr. Stuck. It twirls through fear, spins at the thought of nothing waiting beyond the dark, of emptiness, and somersaults towards hope, spread before him like a sunlit lake. Perhaps they have caught him in time. Okay, your most important characteristic in your description is the ability to make the reader think. And so here I've got a metaphor. Wizened, by the way, means to age, usually getting dried up with age, wrinkled. But instead of it being wrinkled by age, I've changed it to an abstract noun. And using abstract nouns is really powerful. That's really a way to make your reader think, well, how does that work? How has he been made old by hope? And we can infer from that that he's probably desperate for something, and therefore that hope is tinged with fear, desperation, and that's before you know anything about this old man. It's a really powerful technique to use that abstract noun. Okay, the next thing I want you to notice is how hard I work with my verbs. Verbs need to be powerful. Now, a powerful verb includes precise action. If you can really see a precise action in the verb, it's powerful. Now, not every verb can be powerful. So, for example, sits. I don't know how he's sitting. It's a neutral sort of verb, and show again is a neutral sort of verb, as is spread. So not every verb is going to be powerful, but I'm constantly looking at having really powerful verbs that show precise movements, precise actions, because that will bring your scene to life. The next thing I want to show you about these verbs is they're all connected in an extended metaphor. And the extended metaphor is this idea of what's going on in the old man's mind. So his mind is diving. Again, that gives us the sense of panic because he's waiting to find out if he has cancer which is spread or not. And so he imagines his mind here is like a diver, diving from a great height. I know it's a great height because of the amount of moves that it does on the way down, and it's coming down towards a lake as though he's diving off a cliff. And that idea, of course, is picked up in the cliffs of Cancer. So all these things need to be interconnected. The dive and the cliff and the lake for my extended metaphor to work. Now that's a really sophisticated technique, and notice that I'm trying to use these sophisticated techniques in my first paragraph because that's when my examiner is going to make up their mind. And let's just forget you're writing about an exam for the minute. You want to be a good writer, and that's what a writer wants to do. They want to hook you straight from the beginning. So show off with as many techniques as you can straight away. Now, a really advanced technique is the use of sound. It's basically what motivates poets. But when you're writing descriptively, I want you to think like a poet. And let me show you what I mean here. Hopefully you know what assonance is. It's the repetition of the vowel sound. And look how I've started here. Hope, the O, and old. And just that O sound sounds like a note of surprise, a lament perhaps. And I deliberately start that way to show the feelings of the character. Now, you won't be aware of that when you're reading it. Let me show you some other sounds that you probably will be aware of. Look at the way that I keep using the harsh C or K sound. Cliffs, cancer, stuck, dark, lake. These are harsh sounds, often occurring at the beginning or end of words, so they've got a finality about them. And that works with my topic here. Here I've got a man who's worried about dying of cancer. Now, I don't have to put too much thought into using these sounds now. It comes naturally to me. But when I started, I had to think about them. Students often get very upset when I analyze a piece of writing in class and they say, but the author couldn't possibly have meant that. Well, actually, yeah, they did. And sometimes, no, sometimes the author didn't mean it, but it happens unconsciously. They fit the sound to the mood of the thing they're trying to recreate. The easiest way I can explain it to you is imagine you were writing song lyrics to a tune. You would automatically end up finding words that fit that tune. And the better you get at writing, the more you understand the tune of it, the mood of it. And you will pick words that fit that sound. So this sort of alliteration works really well. Now, the other thing that I want you to think about is about contrast. Contrast is really, really important in a description because it's the only way to introduce conflict. Imagine this was a photograph of a beach. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, move on. It's not very interesting at all. And your description can be boring that way. But let me put a child in the sea and put them a bit far out. Suddenly I've got some conflict. Okay, what about if I put a shark's fin somewhere else in the scene? Suddenly I've got some conflict. The picture is suddenly interesting because I'm wondering what might happen next once I move away from that picture. And that's the job of your description. You want that contrast. So here I have the threat of the cancer and his mind diving, but it's moving towards hope, to this sunlit lake. In my metaphor, that suggests hope. And so I've got this conflict. I want to read on and find out at the end, does he get the diagnosis of cancer or not? I'm desperate to find out. Now, because I want to be even more sophisticated, I'm using a technique called sibilance. And hopefully you'll know that sibilance is where you use the alliteration with the S sounds, spins, somersault, emptiness. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the word. Spread, sunlit, always emphasizing these S sounds. Well, here in this description, the S sounds aren't necessarily sinister. They might also give you a sense of peace, especially here, spread before him like a sunlit lake. So I've got that contrast between the harsh sounds of alliteration and the gentle sounds of the alliteration of the S, the sibilance, and that's to give my writing that tension again, that contrast. So I hope you can see how that works. Practice it, play with it. It's very easy to get good at once you practice. It's like tennis. Okay, you will probably be familiar with Soapaims, a handy way of remembering techniques to use in descriptive writing. If you can't remember them, they are in my description below the video. Check them out. So we've had metaphor and alliteration. Here you can see the simile. And my extended metaphor of the mind diving, that's obviously personification. It's something a person would do, twirling and spinning and somersaulting. So I've put all those techniques in early. I can't emphasize that enough. Right, let's carry on with the description. He chuckles optimistically to himself, fingers curled in a ball upon his walking stick, his back stooped by the blows of time, the blasts of age, rounded like a ball. He thinks, I ought to be easy to catch. And I've got a little joke running through this just for my own amusement, really, but I like this sort of writing. So he was thinking about catching the cancer in time before it spreads, and that's what he's meaning here. But I've related that to my description of him, where what's easy to catch, it's a ball. So I've deliberately described him in this rounded sort of way. So his fingers are curled into a ball. His back is stooped. Possibly I could have had that rounded. I could have used that word, but I thought you might pick that up. And I've got rounded here just to emphasize it. So good. I'm glad I remembered that. And then the simile, like a ball. Now that is similar to the extended metaphor idea again, isn't it? I'm giving him a circular shape because I want to prepare myself for this joke, which is a sort of ironic joke here. He wants to be caught because that will mean he lives. The cancer won't have spread. Okay, now hopefully you can see the power of the verbs again. So chuckles, that gives me a real picture of what sort of laugh it is. So it is precise. So's curled. You can actually visualize it. Stooped is the same. And then we've got this idea of the abstract nouns again that I gave you with hope. So age is an abstract noun. You can't touch it or feel it. And so is time. And then I've got another technique going on here. I've chosen nouns, blows and blasts, which are also verbs in other contexts. Okay, so this is a really sophisticated technique here. If you choose nouns that sound like verbs, again, they put a lot more action into your description. The blows of time, the blasts of rage. So I can imagine time like a storm really attacking this old man, and I can imagine age attacking him with blasts. Whether you think of that as shouting or you think of it as explosions, you can see it as really damaging to him. Okay, if we go back to that and look at the sounds, hopefully you've picked up the alliteration of the harsh C sound again. Chuckles, curled, stick, back, thinks, catch. That harsh sound keeps going through like a piece of music. Yeah, it's almost like a chorus. And that alliteration works all the time. Next, we're going to go down to this paragraph. He coughs amusement. The receptionist catches his eye. Notice the joke that I'm carrying on here, using catches in a different sense. Good readers will pick up on that. And he is alarmed at his germs strafing the waiting room. Notice the really powerful verb again. But it is crammed, and she has been bombarded by an explosion of sneezes, coughs, and wheezes all day, all week, all year. Notice the repetition for effect here and the rhythm that it gives the writing. God, what it must be like to watch the dead and dying who get spat out by the indifferent nursing homes, or wheeled in by resigned and fearful children, themselves already beginning to feel afraid of time, of last times, of final goodbyes. Notice again how I've got that rhythm repeated in that sort of pattern of three that I had here all week, all year, of time, of last times, of final goodbyes. And that rhythm again acts like a chorus because the sound of your writing is important. The future pummels them with certainty. And again, I've got an abstract noun here, certainty. Well, what does that? We don't know what that looks like. That's what makes it an abstract noun. And I've got it pummeling him because he's thinking, oh, I'm going to die. And that's what the relatives of all these old people who are being brought into hospital are also thinking. My mother's going to die. My father's going to die. And that's the certainty about it is we all have to face that. That future is coming and we're just desperate to put it off as long as possible. Again, hopefully you picked up on the really powerful verbs. Let's take a look at them. Here they are, highlighted in yellow: alarmed, strafing, bombarded, dying, spat, wheeled. Not a violent one, but it helps you picture the helplessness of the people who are coming into the hospital. Feel afraid, pummels. Hopefully, you're getting a sense of how your writing can build up this sense of conflict, this sense of tension, without anything necessarily happening. Yeah, we've got to keep it as a description. So I really hope you can start practicing this for yourself now. When you're developing as a writer, you're much more likely to think of description as full of adjectives, and you've probably been taught that. But sophisticated writers tend not to use adjectives too much. Let me show you. In my first paragraph, the only real adjective is sunlit, and that's there for a purpose, to create that contrast, remember. In this paragraph, I don't think I've used any adjectives at all. If we come down to this paragraph here, crammed, resigned, fearful, last and final, I put a few together here for impact, and they're all connected to this idea of him reaching the end, or anyone who is in his position reaching the end. So I'm not using adjectives because I have to use adjectives. I'm using them here to create that sense of rhythm that I talked about with the repeated sentence structure, with the repetition. So don't pepper your writing with adjectives just because you're describing. Make sure they serve the purpose that you're after in that paragraph. Okay, I'm not going to make any notes on this one, this last paragraph. What I'd like you to do is analyze it yourself and send me that analysis as a comment, and I'll make a video of it if it's any good. So death waits beyond the glassy lake. Hopefully you've noticed the personification. Mr. Stuck's mind dives again. He listens to the receptionist, her European accent harsh but increasingly familiar. The doctor will be with you soon, she says. It sounds like a threat. Hopefully you picked up the sense of contrast there between her smooth sounding words, but the way he perceives them, because, well, why would the doctor be a threat? Well, because of the news that he might bring. And then I'm offering some relief. He suddenly laughs and all eyes turn to him. His eyes are on her name badge, blue as steel. Miss T. Rajic, it reads. So I've chosen Rajic because, let's just put a space in there, because that sounds like an Eastern European name. It also sounds quite harsh, ending in the C sound. Remember, I've picked that sound up all the way through here. And I've also got a little joke there. I hope you appreciate it. It stands for tragic. And so it suggests that he might die, although his laughter suggests that there might still be some relief. The doctor might have some good news. So I hope you can see how this works as a piece of description. Well done for sticking this far into the video. If you have, I promised you that I would talk about Storm on the Island. So what I did with Storm on the Island is I just put it up on the board in front of my class and said, right, we're going to do a piece of descriptive writing in a minute. I want you to pick the most significant, important, interesting word in each line. So they just had a list of one word from each line, and then I set them the task of writing a 250-word description. The one you've just read with me, I think, is 259 words, and it took me 20 minutes to do in class. And I'd expect you to be able to do sort of 300 to 400 in your 45 minutes in the exam. So let's see if you spot loads of the words. So they chose sink. I don't think I've used that. Wizened, I began with. Stuck, I've made that his name. And remember, I picked on it because of the sound of it. Blows and blast, I had in there. Interestingly, I haven't got the word chorus, but it's stuck with me, and I've tried to use a chorus in the writing. I hope you can understand that now that you've seen it. Fear, I had in there. Pummels. I could have had some shelter, but I didn't. Instead, I used the repetition of no, or at least the idea of repetition. I'm trying to remember if I did use no now. Exploding, cliffs. I didn't have flung. I did have spits. Savage was the one that they used, and I would have tried to use that, but actually it was a bit over the top. So I chose the idea of dives. Strafes, we had strafing, didn't we? Bombarded. I also added in empty, and I also had nothing. Now, what's really interesting for me is I didn't have that list of words written in front of me. Yep, my students all did, but I did all this from memory because, and this is why the technique is so good, it doesn't just help you to build your description by learning from a master, the poet, Seamus Heaney. It will also mean that when I sit down in the poetry exam, I will remember all those words probably, and these extra ones that I've put in. Now, the advantage for that is I've got all those words I can use as quotations. Now, hopefully, you remember what kind of quotations are the best ones. They are embedded quotations, and the easiest ones to embed are, of course, short ones. And all these single word quotations are by definition short. So in this one video, this one exercise, I've shown you how to get an A star in your description and an A star in your poetry. And that is why it's such a cool video. And if you've got this far, you are awesome and cool as well. Good luck in your exams. Subscribe for more. Oh, and just in case you haven't popped down to the description, here are the 10 things that this video has tried to teach you. 10 things because I want you to get 100%. Thanks again for watching.